All right, welcome back to the Busy Executives podcast. I'm so excited for both of our guests tonight, and I'm just so excited because both of them bring so much knowledge and just a wealth of information. But I'm excited to have you guys hear a little bit more of their story. So they run a podcast as well, and we'll get to dive into that a little bit more. But Brian and Josh, thank you so much for joining us.
Appreciate it, man. Thanks for having us. We're excited for the convo.
Yeah. Thanks,
Awesome.
Michael. Been looking forward to this. So.
Yeah, it'll be a lot of fun. So Brian, do you want to start us off? Give our listeners just a little bit of history about yourself. Let them get to know you a little bit better. And, because this is a leadership podcast, that's going to be a bit, bigger portion of our focus. Maybe just a little bit about your leadership journey, so we can learn more that way.
All right. So the 3-hour conversation begins now. I'm just kidding.
Yes. Starting now.
But no, my name is Brian Horan. I'm working in the financial services industry with my wife. We've been in the team building, recruiting and training game since 2011. But even prior to that, I was a restaurant manager with Round Table Pizza for about 12 years. And just kind of worked my way up from crew member up to general manager. So I've had a lot of experience in leadership and building teams and working together for a common goal. Prior to that, when I was in school, I was in marching band. Always found myself in being a section leader. I was a drum instructor as well. So just always been fascinated by the leadership game and getting lots and lots of people together for one common vision, lots of personalities, everybody kind of dialed in, focused on one thing for whether it be a specific day, specific month, a specific season. And I've always just been fascinated about how to bring so many different people together for one common goal.
I love it. Awesome. I didn't know the Round Table Pizza are those still around? I feel like they're still around.
They are. So obviously I'm new to the North Idaho area. My wife and I moved up here in November of 2021. So I was down in Southern California, born and raised down there. Hopefully nobody holds that against me, but I came to join the party, not ruin it. But there is still some Round Table Pizzas up here. I know there's one in Spokane Valley. I think a couple in Spokane. But I loved my time there, learned a lot, but definitely glad to be out of food service and to be my own boss to where I'm not being micromanaged by a corporate office that really has no idea what they're talking about. They're just looking at numbers on a page. So there's definitely, if that comes up today, leadership versus management is a topic I could tangent on for hours.
I think the most important question, though, is can you make a pizza? Like at home, do you make pizza?
I try not to. That's what restaurants are for.
I bet you make a pretty mean pizza if you wanted to. So
if I did, like
if you don't have to,
it's fun, but nothing from scratch. I'll buy the dough. I'll go DiGiorno.
There you go. Yeah, that's how you do it.
So
I like it.
Awesome. Yeah. Brian, thank you very much.
Appreciate that.
Josh, you want to share a bit of your story as well?
So, I guess throughout all my years of career and again, financial industry, I believe I met you back in the credit union world, originally, Michael, but, so throughout my career, I've always ended up in leadership positions and, management positions. But again, as Brian mentioned, a lot of people think management is leadership, but it's not. Everyone can be a leader. You don't have to be in a management or authority position to be a leader. And so obviously ending up in those management positions, though, created that path and that journey to discovering like what a leader is, and how to be a good leader for my people in the community. And then, also Chamber of Commerce, which is, how us two dudes in our podcast relate, but always those leadership roles that honestly it's an absolute privilege to serve.
Yeah.
And it's not something I take lightly. I'm humbled to be in those positions, but also I have amazing teams, amazing co-leaders that make it an absolute joy to work in that industry. So yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, you guys have your podcast, which I love listening to, that really focuses on the benefits of chambers, right? Chambers of commerce, and obviously that's where the two of you guys met, right? So I don't want to like steal your story, but I know that's kind of a big part of the both of you as well, right?
Yeah. No, so I'm probably starting my sixth year involved in chambers of commerce. Obviously, the last year and a half, 2 years since we've been up here in North Idaho. My wife and I were part of a growing chamber, very similar to the Hayden Chamber that we're part of right now. Just seeing a lot of similarities with the growth of the city and things like that. So a lot of that knowledge can apply really well up here. So jumped in real quick, became part of the ambassador program, and really just saw what it did for our business, but more so just the connection that it allowed us to make with our community. People got to know us as people, as opposed to, oh, I'm trying to sit with you to set up your finances and like that. So it broke walls down. It's one of those things where when you make connection with somebody brand new as a member of the chamber, it's not, oh, I'm Brian with financial services. It's Brian with the Hayden Chamber of Commerce. How can I serve you? How can I help your business? And through that organic conversation, eventually business to business talk is going to come up. And that's the thing that we just fell in love with that. So that's where when we moved up here, within literally set up rent, set up our apartment, set up everything. And like within a couple of weeks, we joined the chamber. And where Josh and I met was at the monthly networking business connection breakfast at the time. That it was the ugly sweater Christmas party. And I loved the fact that I just like to jump into those things and really participate. And just because there's a lot of people that are like, I don't know what people are going to think of me. And I'm just like, I don't really care. So I jumped in and I found, a more detailed story you can find on our podcast, Two Dudes in the Chamber, on Apple Music or on Apple Podcast and Spotify. The more detailed story on this, but basically I couldn't find a sweater, found one. It just had a picture of the Grinch on there that said mean one. And it wasn't until the morning of the breakfast that I went, this may have been a poor idea to wear a mean one sweater at an event where I'm trying to meet people, networking.
At a networking event.
That was probably a poor idea, but passing Josh in the hallway, he's like, dude, I love your sweater. Like the first thing he ever said to me, didn't even know his name, didn't know anything. And I was like, all right, cool. It gave me the confidence to kind of lean into it and it was all good. But from that, it started our friendship and just, we have so much in common from how much leadership means to us and things like that led us to such a great friendship, but also led us to start the podcast and really just getting out there that how beneficial a chamber of commerce can be. It's not something that you pay once a year and then hopefully it works out. There's got to be some skin in the game, but there's a way to do that to where it's beneficial to you as well as your community. So,
yeah. Let's talk about that for a little bit if we can dive in, because I think this really ties into obviously the community aspect, which I know you guys are both very involved in, especially in the Hayden Chamber, but specifically in leadership, because sometimes it's kind of like, hey, what can I get from this? Or, oh gosh, I don't have enough time to maybe dive into some of these things that are more focused on, community development or maybe supporting other businesses,
right.
Developing some of those relationships. It's more about, okay, well, I got a business to run, or I got to do my own thing. How
Right.
have you felt like developing those relationships first and leading in that way in your business has helped you, Brian? And then obviously, Josh, for you, as you've grown, in the credit union space, how has that helped you guys?
You want to take that one first or?
Yeah, you go for it.
All right, fair enough. No, I know for us, because we're in such a people-centric business, like obviously helping people plan for the future, establishing their life insurance and their legacy plan, saving for the future, eliminating debt, all aspects of financial planning. That's such a personal relationship that if someone's going to trust their future to you, they've got to know you, they got to like you, they got to trust you. There's no better way to do that than through serving them through the Chamber of Commerce. Someone gets to know your heart. And then it's that way they get to know, okay, it's service over self, I guess is the best way to describe that. To where we really want to serve before we're served,
Yeah.
Yeah, well, and in the credit union world, it's about people helping people, which everyone's probably heard that motto. And I think when you put people first, and again, that servant aspect of it, when your heart's in the right place, you're going to see success in not only the industry and your business, but making a difference in the lives of the people that we serve. So, and I think, when you put people first, you put God first, obviously, but you put people first and your heart's in the right place. Ultimately, yeah, it is going to positively affect your balance sheet too. And there is a benefit to that, but That's not why we do it. And that's something I've enjoyed about leadership, is just seeing the impact that we can make.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. You guys both have built teams or are currently building teams. What are a couple of the things that you guys look for specifically, not only in the people that you're looking to maybe hire or promote or train, but what are some of the characteristics or attributes that man, if they have these things, they're going to help my business. They're going to really help my team grow consistently.
Coachability. There's definitely a difference between coachability and coachable and agreeable. Obviously, sometimes when you have to have those tough conversations, someone can just go, they can shake their head and go, yeah, I'm with you. And they think they're being coachable, but they're just agreeing with you, but they're not willing to implement it. Someone that's got that true coachability spirit, about willing to take those hard conversations, but then be willing to implement to do that. I know I've lived that personally myself. I spent a good portion of the early part of my career thinking I was coachable, but I was very much on the agreeable scale of just going, yeah, that sounds good. Like logically it made sense, but it didn't move from the head to the heart to where I actually implemented the changes that my coaches were suggesting, or, strongly encouraging. Hey, if you want to see success, I definitely recommend you do this. So coachable is the very first one that I look at, but then teachable, someone that's willing to learn new things. They don't come in think they have it all figured out, because coachable and teachable sound like they could be the same thing, but learning something new, but also coachable about changing things. That's where those two things are the two biggest ones that I look at. And then obviously a heart to help people. I can train on all the technical stuff, but if you don't have a genuine heart of wanting to help and serve others, it's going to be really tough to really be in a service business like we're in. So,
Right.
That's it.
Yeah.
100%. And I think when I look for people that I'm building my team, Michael, or any team, whether it's a board of directors or chapter, chamber, the day job at a credit union, is attitude. As Brian said, you can train anything, right? And some of the best people I've ever had have some of the most bland of resumes. Maybe they just graduated high school, or they came from McDonald's or something. I'm just using that as a reference, but it's their attitude, right? You can do anything. The sky's the limit as long as they're coachable. But another thing to that too is, you mentioned agreeable. I think someone that obviously coachable is better, but someone that's not afraid to challenge, right? So me as a leader, I'm not 100% perfect all the time, obviously. And so there's been times, I know it's hard to imagine, but my ego definitely gets in the way. But that's a different story. So, as a leader, we sometimes we want people to just follow exactly what we say. This is the route that we're going. But, we need people that can challenge us. Iron sharpens iron.
For sure.
And some of the most challenging people I've had were maybe entry-level employees or the newest person on the board, who isn't afraid to stand up and say, hey, look, why are we doing it this way? And that, why are we doing it this way? Is there a better way that we can go? And is there room for improvement? I think everything we do should be evaluated from, what can we do to improve? And just because this is good, how can we get, why do we stay in good? Why can't we, chase perfection? We're never going to attain it, but along the way, maybe we'll catch excellence, as the good old Vince Lombardi said. But being open as a leader too, to be challenged. And so we need teams, and we need people on those teams that are willing to do that too. And I'm rambling now, but
no, I think that's a big thing about coming from the roundtable world. One of the things that the corporate wanted us, the area managers wanted us to do, was to challenge the process. The problem with that being kind of one of their bullet points, it sounded really good on paper, but when you challenged the process, it was met with resistance. So if you're a leader that wants to be challenged, you've got to be open to evaluating everything, because like you said, we're all not perfect.
Right.
But if we're going to foster a culture like that, we've got to allow it and then let it happen, to not, oh, hey, we want this, but then our words aren't congruent with the way we're acting. That's a big thing about.
That's our attitude.
Right.
Are we
that
going
comes
to feel
down
threatened about it, or insecure. No, we should look at it as an opportunity to grow.
Absolutely. Yeah. Like if we think that we're the only, if it's just us leading the way to our vision without the help of our team, that's the Superman approach. And I think that's a terrible way to run a business, run a team, build a team, anything like that. It's got to be a collaborative effort. Yes, there is a person that is designated as a leader, but if you're not willing to make it a team effort, you're going to fall on your face super quick.
Right. Yeah, gosh, that's so true. That reminded, when you guys were talking about that, it reminded me of a quote that I had from a mentor way back when, which was stated belief plus actual practice equals actual belief. Right. So it's like we can say whatever we want. What's the company line? Right. What is the leader saying? But what's actually like when the rubber meets the road, or what's my reaction? And a lot of times I think as leaders, we can say certain things, but then in the heat of the moment, or maybe if it like feels like it's a little bit too close here, or you're kind of grading me now, that's a hard place to be vulnerable enough to say, hey, you know what, you're right. I could have done that differently. Or, you know what, you're right. We probably should look at this a little differently, or give me some time to review that, instead of being met with some resistance, right?
Absolutely.
Because if there's that resistance there, it's going to be real hard for the folks that you're leading to feel comfortable to come to you with the next thing.
Yep.
I just had that this week where another leader, colleague of mine, challenged me on something, and it really, it didn't hurt, but it made me think, and it is difficult sometimes, especially when, I'm always out there talking about leadership or whatever, and I'm sitting there thinking, and she brought it up really well, but I had to evaluate, for the last month, I've been a manager, just straight like operationally, and I was failing as a leader in certain areas, and I had to sit there and be like, you know what? I have gone off track.
Yep.
And I should be better. I can be better. And it took me a minute to sit there and be like, oh boy, it did not take long for me to slip back into managing the problems, managing the situation, which you got to do still. You have a job to get done, but I was failing as a leader in certain areas, and I needed to set my game back up. And so that's where, as leaders, we come along and we can see that in others sometimes, but we don't see it in ourselves.
No, it's really easy to give opinions to other people, but to have that self-internalization of whether you realize it on your own and not dismiss it and go, oh, that's not what it is. But if somebody brings it to you to go like, man, they're right, and that go like, be willing to take that constructive criticism, because most of us are so worried about the criticism part. We're not worried about taking the time to go, is this person have my best interest at heart? Does this person really want to see me succeed? And if we know that if we trust that person's coming to us with genuine feedback to help us, and we can put our ego aside and really address what's in front of there, it's a win-win for everybody.
We forget the constructive and constructive.
We just focused on the criticism part, because none of us are, as leaders, I think this is all, and Michael, you probably agree with this, is that as leaders, there's a certain level of, how do I phrase it? There's a certain level of, not ego, that's not the word I'm looking for, but there's a certain level of belief in yourself that I'm good, but sometimes you can edge that too much to where like you think you know everything. It takes that real humble, that servant leadership to really see your leadership skyrocket. But a lot of people are like, oh no, how dare you talk to me? You're below me, that kind of thing. And that's where leadership can get way off the rails, and you're really more in a management position and not really a leader. And that's where there's such a differentiation between those two. That's
where you turn into boss mode, not leader mode. And
that's a whole nother thing. But like, I've always used this analogy, is that leadership and management are so two different things, that someone's best day as a manager, someone's worst day as a leader will always be way better than their best day as a manager. Just because it's so, just like entrepreneur versus employee, my worst day as a business owner will always be better than my best day as a manager, at the pizza place. So same kind of an analogy, is that leadership is such a rewarding experience, the good and the bad. It's way better than anything that a management position will bring to you. So,
yeah, gosh, that's so true. It's interesting that you guys are prompting quite a few thoughts for me, because, it's interesting. because I get to work with a lot of great leaders and I get to work with a lot of great business owners. And I think one of the biggest traps that's easy to fall into, and honestly is one that I've fallen into, and Josh, you kind of touched on it, is like, well, what happens when there's kind of a crisis or there's a lot of pressure put on? And what are some of the release valves that we have to keep it going? And I think one of the big ones, which it's awesome that you have someone who's willing to tell you the truth. I think one of the most dangerous traps is a leader not having somebody in their team, maybe even at home, or a mentor or a coach or somebody to tell them the truth, right? To help them course correct, to be like, hey, I know you probably don't want to hear this right now, but this is what you need to hear because it's for your own good. And so, and you see this play out quite a bit, unfortunately, is because of position, or just because people don't have that accountability kind of in their circle, in their really tight circle. Because I always say my wife knows me better than anybody else, and she'll call me on stuff because I've given her that permission to, but that's kind of her personality too. She'd be like, come on, Michael. Nuh-uh, no. But we've given each other that permission. And if you don't have that, in your life, it's really, really easy to slip into this place of, well, I kind of know everything. Right. Or, I won't really be challenged on that, or I can kind of let this piece slide. And then you see the effects of that long term. Right.
Right.
You surround ourselves with people that will challenge us, not just yes people.
Yeah. We don't want yes people at all. At all.
I like it.
Yeah. Great. When you guys are thinking about the cultures that you're building, right? So you each have your own teams and you're building these cultures and you're focused on some of these really great attributes. What are one or two things that you're like, gosh, I know that if I'm leading in this way and focused on, these one or two pieces for the culture of our team, then I know we're moving in the right direction. There's other stuff that needs to be, focused on and addressed. But man, if we're really focused on these one or two things, this will help us keep moving forward.
Am I taking the first question of all of them?
Sure, you can go.
Give you some more time to think about it. No,
Rock,
I think
paper,
for
scissors,
me,
right?
Rochambeau. I think for me, the biggest one that I'm focused on is obviously I'm in the financial services world. I'm building a volunteer army. Like, people don't, that I'm painting a picture of a vision of what their life can be like by taking their future into their own hands on the working with me aspect. Obviously, working with people and developing their future, and working with people as a client is different from the team building aspect of what I do. So building a volunteer army, some people still have jobs as they're transitioning in, or maybe this is just a part-time, second professional career with me. I've got to lead from the front. And I think modeling the behavior, modeling what I want our focus to be, is that obviously there's a getting together, teams and rah-rahs and everything like that. That's all fun. But there's got to be results. Then the results are how many families are being helped, how many families are being protected, everything along those lines. So making sure that I'm leading from the front of what I'm asking my team to do, I have to do first. I can't just say one thing and then not do it, because that whole thing of do as I do, not as I say, or do as I say, not as I do, that's a manager 101, like, no question. I have to be do as I do, maybe not as I say, because I want my actions to speak louder than words. So that's one of the biggest thing that I'm focused on is just modeling the behavior, leading from the front, and whatever I expect of my team, I have to have done it and be willing to do it while I'm asking them to do it. Otherwise, I just turn into a hypocrite.
Yeah, that's good.
See, for me, I want to make sure the team knows what the vision is. They need to have a clear direction where we're going as an organization, as a group, as our team. And without a vision, the people perish, right? It's absolute chaos. And so as a leader, it's up to us to define that clear vision of this is where we're going, this is how we're going to get there. And then making sure that the team also feels valued. So if the team feels taken care of and they know that you're there for them, which I feel like I communicate pretty well to my team, then, they're more willing to follow that kind of leader and that vision. And then you're going to see results. When you have a happy, a positive, a well-trained, knowledgeable team, that's going to carry through in the business aspect. That's going to carry through to the members that we serve, the communities that we serve, the clients. And so if you put your team first, that's, some people want to focus on the goals the sales, all of that aspect. If I put the team first, then that's going to carry through to our business. And it ultimately, I mean, it results in profit, but again, the leader sets the tone, right? And so I set that tone every day when I go into work. The energy that I bring to it. And if I'm confused where I'm going as a leader, then again, that carries through to the rest of the team. Um, the other thing too is I think it's important, especially with, I work with a lot of millennials, Gen Z. They want to know that the work that they're doing is making a difference. I think the different generations, and I'm sure this would be a whole conversation for another time, but it's not, a lot of times it's not just I go to work, I do the bare minimum, 9 to 5, clock in, go home. They want to know that the work that they're doing is making an impact.
Right.
And so, as you know, in the credit union world, that's fairly easy to do, but you have to communicate that with them. Hey, what we're doing has this direct value to the members. This is what we did in our community that helped maybe the homeless or a food bank or some sort of organization, and including them and incorporating them in that. We're not just doing that at the higher levels of the company, but we're doing that at all levels of the company. So yeah, that's something I like to do, is just make them feel included. Even in some of the leadership decisions, when I need to make some sort of, maybe strategic initiatives or some goals, include them in that discussion. Hey, this is the big picture. This is what we need. This is where we need to get. How do we get there as a team? What do you all recommend? Let's open it up for discussion. But yeah, and ultimately that's going to result in a better employee retention, which also has an effect on the bottom line.
Absolutely.
But one of my favorite quotes is, a bad leader can take a good staff and destroy it, causing the best employees to flee and the remainder to lose all motivation. So I don't remember who said that quote, but just as well, a good leader can take those employees, keep them there, keep turnover low, right. Which we all know we don't want turnover in this economy. And it costs more to replace an employee anyways.
Right.
With the rehiring or the hiring, the training, all of that. So take good care of the employees you got. Make them feel valued.
There's nothing better than taking the time to actually invest in someone.
Exactly.
Because so many people are not, everybody has a flashing sign on their chest that says, make me feel special. And I think when a leader, whether they're in a corporate setting or team building, whatever it happens to be, if you can take the time to invest in them, you're showing them that you see something in them, you value them as part of the team, but also in the same way you're helping yourself. It's kind of just the perfect catch-22 about, I want to improve the bottom line, so I'm going to invest rather than try to cut. That's where I think a lot of people will lose that. They'll lose that perspective.
Yeah, no, that's so true. I don't know about for you guys, but on my side, I can't see I can't see you guys anymore. Can you guys see me okay?
Yeah.
We can see your camera cut out for a minute there.
We can still see you.
Yeah. All right, cool. Well, we'll keep rolling. Sometimes it'll catch up or it'll be recording again. It'll be just fine. So we're
all
right. So, you prompted something for me, Josh, when you talked about millennials, because I feel like this is a really hot button issue. It's something that I've actually helped companies with and really focused on, is this millennial piece, right? Or even the younger generation, where there's this narrative of they're lazy, they are entitled, they don't want to work, they don't really want to do anything, right? I'm sure you guys have heard this. And you touched on something of, well, wait a second, what if it's more about speaking maybe a different language, or maybe a language that's a little bit different than what our parents went through, or even kind of for us, we're similar ages, I think. Where it's just kind of like, oh, these are just like why you do what you do when it comes to work, that there's kind of a different narrative that needs to happen, and you can engage this age range. Is that kind of what I was hearing?
Oh, absolutely. I think you just we as leaders, we need to adjust too, because it's not a one size fits all. And so when we realize what sparks their fire, what makes them passionate, right? And maybe we have millennials who come to the job initially because it pays the bills. And I've had employees that initially come to the job because it pays the bills. And then they end up some of the top performing, best producing because they buy into the vision and they understand what they're there for and how that has a positive impact. And so finding what sparks them. And again, with the generations, it's also not a one size fits all. You can't just, say all millennials are lazy. Right. Some of the hardest workers I know are millennials, or, boomers or Gen Z, Gen X, the forgotten generation, they say. But yeah, I think just identifying what makes them tick, what makes them want to come to work. And, but it's not easy either. It takes more work on our part.
Oh, for sure.
Right. It's really easy enough to be like, this is the goal. This is what we're doing. Do it now or you're in trouble. But no, it's tailoring each individual kind of leadership styles. We adapt. I try and adapt to each person that I'm interacting with.
Different strokes for different folks is one of the earliest leadership lessons I ever learned, is that what works for my interaction with Josh will not be the same interaction potentially of what works with my interaction with Michael if he's on my team. Like you've got to be able to adapt. So in a weird way, like leaders are like chameleons. Like you've got to be able to adapt to whoever you're dealing with, not inauthentically. You've just got to be able to meet somebody where they are and understand, like you've heard that the 5 love languages, with you and your partner, or even with friendship and things like that. You've got to understand how the people that you're working with respond to the best when it comes to communication, and be able to meet them there. So that's why leaders are constantly evolving and constantly learning.
It requires work on our part because we got to invest in ourselves, right?
Right.
Which is where, for example, attending a seminar with Michael, would be beneficial. He came and spoke at our chamber lunch that one time, and I took away a lot, and I learned a lot. And you caused us to challenge ourselves and our thinking.
Right.
But as leaders, we got to constantly be learning. So.
Yeah. No, thank you for that. Yeah, it's true. And that kind of leads me into my next question for you guys. What are some of the specific things? It might even be a book or a podcast, or, just even in your journey. What's helped you continue to grow and kind of keep that fire going so you don't kind of slip off, like you mentioned, and go into the management realm, but stay focused on growing and sort of stretching yourself as a leader?
I'm going to take this one first. And again, not to
I love it.
Not to just give you shout out here because we're on the podcast, but as I mentioned to you at one of the chamber lunches, I believe a month or two ago, Michael, and I was going through a lot as a leader, right? I was being tested every day through just a lot of different things in the industry, but something as simple as making sure that we're surrounding ourselves with the right people, the right information. When I wake up in the morning, do I choose to, turn on the news and look at all the depression and the wars and the tragedy and start my morning with a sense of negativity? No, I'll open LinkedIn or Facebook or something and look at, leadership, and not just to feel lighthearted or like, oh yeah, we're motivational for the day. But seriously, your posts, you post, I feel like almost daily.
Yep.
And for whatever reason, it was just what I needed almost every day that week. And that was one of the most difficult weeks probably in my career and life as a leader. And so surrounding myself with that, I love John Maxwell, Simon Sinek, I think, and different. Did we determine if it was Sinek or Sinek? Do you know this one, Michael?
I think it's Simon Sinek is what I've heard. But
Sinek, okay.
Fair enough.
And different leadership consultants, and each one's different. But I will say Michael Wolsten, his consulting company is pretty legit,
fairly solid. Not just because we're on the podcast,
exactly.
But Michael's got some words of wisdom.
You guys are kind. No, thank you.
Yeah, your social media game is on point. So just you seem to drop the right thing at the right time. Like I know for Josh, he got obviously got a lot of encouragement there. But for me, there's just been certain ones that right at the right time was just, exactly what I needed to hear, whether it be personally something I'm dealing with or something to file away that I know that will probably come up in a leadership journey down the road, is that it's a collection. It's a conglomerate. It's not, if you're a leader and you think you know everything, you're the farthest thing from a leader at that point in time. Is just you've got to be able to learn from everybody around you, because you want to be successful, copy success to become successful. So
Yeah. So true. So true. So one big question for the two of you, and I'd love for you to both to answer this. How do you feel like your faith has helped really help you grow as a leader, and how do you feel like it's influenced who you are? Because sometimes there's kind of this idea of, oh, I have to keep that separate, from my work life and my faith life and those types of things. How do you feel like it's made an impact for each of you?
Oh, I'll say for me, the fact that I don't have to keep them separate, because I'm like, I'm a independently, run business that I'm an independent contractor with a parent company, but I don't have to. I can be wide open with what my faith is. I'm still, inclusive with everybody, but I get a chance to not be shy about who I am, what I believe, who my Lord and Savior is, and even though I've got that ability, sometimes you can compartmentalize and you can say one thing, but then just the way that you're acting, not incongruent, you're just not fully focused. Oh, I'm focused on everybody else, but I'm really focused on growing myself. I think when it really got to the point to where I turned this, that I'm in the field that I'm in, God called me into this field, whether I wanted to be here or not. God doesn't call the qualified, he qualifies the called. And once I got that part dialed in, I'm starting to see the fruits of it now. And I spent years fighting that, of going, why am I here? I'm not naturally gifted for this. Like kind of that push and pull of, am I in the right spot? Do I fully believe this is where God has me for a purpose, for a calling? I do feel strongly, but then the evidence says different, head versus heart. Once I got that dialed in and went like, no, this is where I'm called for. It's not always going to be perfect, but the vision and the what he's called me to do, I can't accomplish that in my own strength. And once I know that anything that I do is him working through me, that's where I know like I can accomplish anything, because I'm not trying to do it all on my own.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well,
Gotcha.
and I learned early on that, leaving God out of the picture isn't going to work. And, I can't think of a better example of a leader as we talk about leadership than, look at the scripture. It's full of leadership, principles, stories, Jesus and his parables. His 12 disciples, right? He was the ultimate leader of all. But, and I think a lot of it carries over. I spent 4 years studying to be a pastor and got a theology degree and did not use it. And when I got into the finance world, I was thinking, well, that degree was, basically useless. Here I am, not in any sort of ministry, but, in finance. And then I realized actually a lot of it kind of carries over.
Yep.
A pastor is a leader and, but a servant first, and so that's where I think the servant leadership aspect of things, it's kind of congruent. It definitely carries over. Yeah. So here I am, not a pastor, but some of the principles still the same.
Yeah, no, it's one of the things that as a leader in our company several years ago that I understood conceptually, but I didn't really get it to the heart until we moved up here and kind of started to see, and as we're rebuilding a team and kind of getting things going in our new location, was I wasn't called to the ministry, like vocational ministry, to be a pastor or anything along those lines. But that doesn't mean that my business can't be my ministry. So, having the term businessry is what I'm really doing, and I love that connection there. It's a nice, fun play on words, but at the end of the day, like I've got a business that's a ministry, and, it's a lot of fun to be able to impact people through the area of finance, but ultimately, having, bigger conversations is always a good thing. That maybe that door was open through the area of finance, which I have, obviously a passion for, to make sure people don't go through what I went through personally, from the financial side of the world. So just being able to meet people where they are, but obviously keep a focus on what the main thing truly is.
I love the journey that you guys are on. So you touched on it at the very beginning. I'd love for us to kind of wrap up at the end for you guys to share your podcast again, just a little bit of what it's about and why folks should tune in.
Well, we're fun. I'm just kidding.
Obviously,
no, we have a good time with it. It's called Two Dudes in the Chamber, And we wanted to obviously just have a play on words, and just obviously we deal with chambers of commerce and all that stuff. So we've got a lot of experience there. But I think a lot of people may hear chamber of commerce and get a couple of different things in their mind of just like, oh, it's just a bunch of stuffy people talking about business. It's all about money, whatever, as opposed to looking at it that it's like, it's really a key and a really like a heartbeat to the community of getting to connect with multiple different business owners, multiple different people from different walks of life, and with one common connection of really seeing the business community grow. Because as the community grows, the business community grows, all of our businesses should grow. But people don't know how to approach it. So obviously first episode, we talked about just our journey in general, what we want to talk about, leadership, culture, and then community. So talking about those three things and how all that ties together. What does follow-up look like? What does networking look like? Just practical ways of people being able to think it through rather than showing up at a networking breakfast or a networking lunch and going, what do I do? There's so many people in this room, having a couple guys talk about it, making fun of ourselves at the same time, and really just getting a chance to look into it and go, oh, okay, these guys are real. They're having a little bit of fun, but how can I take what they're talking about and apply it to a way to grow my business? Is the chamber something that's been on the back of my mind that I need to just take that first step and really just stop thinking about it and get off the snide and, take that action to really just go to an event first, not even saying join a chamber yet, go to an event first, take what we've talked about, see if it's something that you feel is going to fit your business. And I think you said it at the very beginning. It's easy for people to go, oh, not enough time. Oh, this, so they can talk themselves out of it. But you've got to have multiple different ways of growing your business. And it can't just be the only way that you're used to and you're comfortable to. I think for any sort of success, you have to challenge your comfort zone. And we're hoping that this podcast will allow people to break out of that comfort zone a little bit at a time, rather than trying to, completely just jump into the deep end of the pool. Just take a shot. What is, go meet somebody, go meet 3 people rather than trying to meet 100 people in a 45-minute meeting. Let's go make 3 quality connections and see where that can take me. Build that confidence, and then maybe I make 6, and then just kind of takes it from there. But we like to have a lot of fun with it. We're not as time concise as you are with 10-minute clips for the busy executives, so maybe we can learn from you on that one. But we're finding our groove. We're getting some episodes out there at least once a month's our goal right now, and just obviously such is life. But we're hoping to grow that, and as we grow that, people can give us their ideas of what they'd like to hear about and kind of go from there. But we know we want to have you on in the near future, of just kind of getting to hear your story. We've appreciated being on your show. So we look forward to having you, as well as some other leaders here in the community, just talking about the stuff that we all love, which is just leadership, community, and all that good stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, I've gotten to listen to an episode of you guys, and you guys are really fun. And I'm definitely looking forward to jumping on there with you too. So thank you guys so much for spending time as well. What was that, Josh?
I was going to say, we can go down rabbit trails and get random sometimes. And, we'll talk about all sorts of things, how to microwave food.
No, it's definitely a good time.
Early 2000s,
definitely worth a listen.
Bands,
So
yeah.
Exactly.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much for sharing your time and your wisdom, and just obviously having this conversation. I'm definitely excited for your guys' continued leadership journey, and thank you for sharing a lot of that with our listeners, and for your podcast. So I wish you guys nothing but the best.
All right. Thanks, Michael. We appreciate your time.
Thanks,
for
Michael.
sure.